My name is Cole. I have been doing search and rescue in the mountains of eastern Tennessee for 14 years. I have found people in situations you wouldn't believe. Hypothermic hikers who walked in circles for 3 days, a quarter mile from the trailhead. A man who fell 40 feet into a ravine and survived on creek water for a week. My father did research and rescue before me, and his mother before him used to say that these mountains take what they want and give back what they choose, and that a wise person doesn't ask too many questions about the difference. I thought that just was something old mountain women said, but I don't think that anymore. The footprints that went one direction. On October of 2016, a 43-year-old man named Gary Settles went into the backcountry near Defeat Ridge in the Cherokee National Forest. It was a solo overnight trip. He was an experienced hiker with a proper gear. He didn't come out when he was supposed to, so his wife reported him missing after 36 hours. We found his tent on the second day. Campsite was intact. Food hanging properly, nothing disturbed. His boots were inside the tent, which I've seen before. Some people sleep in camp shoes. What I hadn't seen before was the footprints. The mud around the campsite was soft from 2 days of rain, so it was good tracking conditions. Gary's footprints went from the tent toward the tree line to the northeast. A clear trail and easy to follow, so we followed them for almost quarter a mile into the forest before something made my partner stop walking. The footprints stopped. We did not stumble at a rock, not at stream crossing, not any terrain feature that would explain it. They just stopped mid-stride. The left footprint was down, and where the right footprint should have been, there was nothing, just undisturbed mud. We searched that area for 2 days, and then we found Gary Settles 4 miles away, on the opposite side of the ridge. He was sitting against a tree. He was physically fine, dehydrated, cold, a little confused, but unhurt. He said he had no memory of leaving his campsite. His last clear memory was getting into his sleep bag. His next clear memory was sitting against the tree. We documented the search operation. We documented the recovery. But I did not document the footprints. I told myself it was because there was no way to accurately describe them in context of an official report without sounding like I needed to be evaluated. That is still probably true. But the real reason is that I have thought about it for almost every week for 8 years is that still I don't have anything counts as an explanation. And writing something down that you can't explain feels in these mountains like inviting more questions than what you answered. Case 2. The woman at the tree line. This one is almost never talked about. Not because it frightened me the most, but because it's the one where I'm least certain what I actually saw. It was the summer of 2018. We were searching for a 14-year-old boy who'd gotten separated from his scout troop on a trail near the Sitico Creek Wilderness. Third day of search, early morning. It was still dark enough that we were using headlamps. I was working a grid section alone, standard procedure, you cover more ground that way, and about 2 miles from the command post. I came over a small rise at the tree line, maybe 60 yards away. There was a woman standing at the edge of the woods. She was facing away from me, grey dress, long grey hair, and completely still. My first thought that she was a hiker who'd gotten confused in the dark, which happens. I called out. She did not respond. I started walking toward her. I got maybe 40 yards and something made me stop. I couldn't tell you what exactly it was. The way she was standing maybe. The complete absence of movement. People who are lost or disoriented still fidget. They shift their weight. They turn toward the sound. But she did none of those things. I stood there for probably 30 seconds. Then I'd radioed back to the command post to report a possible second missing person at my grid coordinates. I looked back at the tree line and she was gone. We searched that area thoroughly, no sign of anyone, no tracks, no disturbed vegetation, nothing. We found the scout that afternoon, about a mile from where I'd been standing. He'd fallen into a shallow creek bed and sprained his ankle badly enough that he couldn't walk out. He'd been there since the previous morning. He was going to be fine. When we were loading him into the transport vehicle, he said something that I wrote down in my personal notebook that night because I didn't really want to forget about it. He said that during the night, when it was the coldest and he was the most scared, he'd seen a woman standing at the edge of the trees near the creek. He said she was facing away from him. He said he'd called out to her and she hasn't responded. He said she'd been there for a long time and that somehow looking at her made him feel less afraid. I never put any of this in the report. Case 3. The ridge that isn't on any map. I want to be careful about how I describe this one because it's the easiest to rationalize and the hardest to actually shake. November of 2019. We were 3 days into searching for 2 hikers who'd gone off a trail in a remote section of Polk County. The terrain there is rough, steep, hollows, dense laurel hills, creek drains that look navigable on a map and are absolutely not navigable in person. We were using topographic maps, GPS, and the whole standard kit. On the third afternoon, my partner Marcus and I came to a ridge that wasn't on any of our maps. I know how that sounds. I know what the obvious explanations are. Outdated maps, GPS error, navigational mistakes. We checked all of those. The ridge was real. We were standing on it, looking down into a hollow on one side and a valley we recognized on the other. The hollow on the north side of that ridge had no name on any map we were carrying. The trees in it looked different from everything around them. Older, or maybe just darker, I couldn't tell. There was no sound from it, not birds, no wind, nothing. In 14 years of working these mountains, I have never been in a section of forest that was completely silent. There is always something. Marcus and I stood at the edge of that hollow for about 2 minutes. Neither of us said anything. Then Marcus said, "We're not going down there." And I said, "No." And we walked along the ridge until we found a way down on the south side and we continued our research. We found 2 hikers the next morning, about 3 miles from the ridge, sheltered under a rock overhang. They were cold and hungry but okay. I looked for that ridge on every map I could find over the following weeks. I checked the USGS surveys. I checked historical plat maps. I checked satellite imagery. I found the valley. I found the terrain around it. I never found the hollow. On satellite imagery, the area where it should be is just forest. Dense forest, no clearing, nothing that would indicate a hollow of that size and depth would be standing above. Marcus doesn't talk about it. I brought it up twice and both times he changed the subject. Case 4. What the dog wouldn't follow. Search dogs are the single most reliable tool we have. A trained search dog will work through conditions that stop a human team. Darkness, bad weather, dense terrain. They don't panic. They don't make the mistakes that fear and fatigue produce in people. In 14 years, I have trusted search dogs in situations where I would not have trusted my own judgment. And they have been right every single time. Every single time except once. On August of 2021, a 7-year-old girl had wandered away from family campsite in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. These are the searches that hit the hardest. A 7-year-old girl alone in the backcountry after dark is in really serious danger. And every person on that team knows it. And the way it focuses everyone's attention is something I can't fully describe. We had a search dog named Trace working with us. It was a Belgian Shepherd, 8 years in service, one of the best trained dogs I'd ever seen in work. His handler was a woman named Patricia, who had been doing this almost as long as I had. Trace picked up a scent trail within the first 20 minutes and started working it confidently. This is what a good find looks like. The dog moves with purpose, the handler reads the signals, and the team follows. We were moving fast in good conditions and I was thinking this was going to be a short search. Trace stopped at the edge of a creek crossing. He crossed water like dozens of times. It doesn't break a scent trail for a dog of his caliber. Patricia gave him the command to continue, but he wouldn't move. She tried again. He sat down and turned his head away from the opposite bank. In 8 years, Patricia told me later, she had never seen Trace refuses a crossing. She took him 20 yards upstream and tried again, same result. 30 years downstream, same result. Every time he reached the edge of the water, he stopped and turned his head away. Patricia and I crossed the creek ourselves. Trace watched us from the other bank and didn't follow. We searched the area on the other side for 2 hours and found nothing. We went back, picked up Trace and walked the search from a different direction. We found the little girl 2 hours later. On the same side of the creek where Trace had originally stopped, she doubled back the way lost children sometimes do when they get scared. And she was less than half a mile from the campsite, hidden under a deadfall, cold but completely unharmed. She was found. The girl was found and she was safe, and that's what matters now. But I've thought about it for what was on the other side of the creek for like 3 years. Trace has retired now. I asked Patricia once, when I thought enough time has passed, whether she'd figure what was he reacting to. She said she had a theory. I asked her what it is. She said, I think he smelled something that wasn't supposed to be there. And I think his training told him that a person is worth finding. And I think whatever was on that other side wasn't a person. She said it very matter-of-factly, the way you say something you have had a long time to think about. Then she changed the subject and we never discussed it again. If you made it this far, I want to say a huge thank you. I have recently started narrating these stories with my own voice, so if you enjoyed the vibe, please support the channel by hitting that like and subscribe button. It really helps me to grow. Thank you very much.